Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, or good day wherever you are in the world, and welcome to the next episode of No Dice, No Glory. Sponsored by our jobs that actually pay us money, we're coming to you not at all live from an abandoned arms factory deep under a mountain in West Virginia. We are proud to proffer to you the finest in wargaming coverage. Without any further ado, let's get this show on the road.
Thanks for the great introduction, Sean. Hey, once again, this is Mitch, and I am here to our two new writers. I'm going to introduce them to you now. We have Phil Bolger.
Hey, guys.
And Nate, call me Dave Fritz.
You can call me Dave.
That's right. So, hey, we just got finished playing Blood and Plunder. These guys have never played Blood and Plunder before, and believe it or not, they're not diehard miniatures gamers. Tell me what you guys thought of the game.
Well, I got to say, I was pretty impressed. You know, I know a little about the era, I know a little about history, and it's tough to get that right. You know, that sort of pike and shot era is easy to make some pretty clumsy rules. But I felt like these played pretty crisp overall. Led to a lot of blood real quick, and that was enjoyable.
No plunder though.
No plunder this time.
Well, I did find a little plunder in the second game, but there was definitely a lot more blood to be had.
So what he's talking about is I put down two doubloons because I didn't think he would have a chance of winning the game, and I said if you can capture one of these objective points, you win the game, and he did it. And so let's talk about the first game you guys played. You guys played with 100 points of French versus the British. They were both Buccaneer forces. They were identical forces. And it was a little bit artificial because we made it like a blood bowl in the middle with a fort. And you can check out the pictures on Facebook. Picking up the mechanics from never playing this game before and playing a totally different game last week, what did you guys think of how easy it was to pick up?
Well, I thought it picked up pretty easy. The quick reference guide was definitely a need to go along with it, but having you walk us through it, even without you there, we would have been able to play the game.
Yeah, because I should make no difference whatsoever.
I mean,
and I agree with that.
You made it actually, much quicker to pick up and streamline the experience. But the understanding from just looking at the cards and the playability there, once you got the flow down, it went very quick, and it was easy to have the back and forth and get a feel for how shooters and stabbers kind of work out there on the field. Shooters and stabbers.
Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought it was pretty easy. I really liked a lot of the mechanics they threw in. What immediately stood out to me was the bidding initiative system. You know, that's something you see a lot more in board games.
Yeah.
And it's absolutely terrific in terms of variability, and it's not just perpetually one guy goes, and it's not totally random like a dice roll either. You have to pick and choose carefully. And I realized real quick that was a core mechanic of the game that was going to determine whether or not I won or lost. And in fact, my ability to not do that very well kind of cost me the first game.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like I know of no other games that uses an initiative system like that, but that's also with my ignorance of knowing I don't know every game out there. But it's pretty intuitive. So if you guys have never played the game and you were to go to a place and meet a quartermaster, and I'm not one of them, that actually knows the rules a lot better than I do, you guys felt it was that easy to pick up.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So for the second game, we went and you guys created forces, and you took English militia. A lot of them.
Yeah, I just realized real quick at the point counts, I could get a whole bunch of shooty stuff out there, and I wanted to see how well that would work. And honestly, I was pretty impressed. I mean, you got to be careful with them. They're fragile, but, man, you get a lot of shots.
So you had 4 units of 4 militia, inexperienced.
Correct.
And you took a big cannon with a veteran Sea Dog crew.
I do want it noted. I committed to the heavy cannon before I realized the heavy cannon couldn't actually be moved. Regret that a little bit. That did cause me some pain. But it was cool to get it on the board, and when it did damage, it did damage.
But you know what? Do you realize what that did? It was an area denial weapon because he moved away from it.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
He did not come. So even the threat of a cannon, I think, because you didn't want to stand fire from that thing.
No, not at all.
It's deadly. And then you picked a Buccaneer force flying under the black flag, and it was freebooters, Buccaneros. No, was it Buccaneros?
No, I had the Sea Dogs, Marines,
Forlorn Hope.
Forlorn Hope, and then...
was it filibusters?
It was filibusters. The filibusters never got a shot off because the boys in red were just brutally effective when they put fire on them.
Yeah, and going for the game, and you guys could see the pictures, it was the scenario mission 2, and the defender, you played it very aggressively with the Militia, knowing that Militia, I can get 2 shots and then run. Did you figure just how he was moving that was going to be your tactic?
That was exactly the problem. I hadn't initially wanted to play so aggressively with the Militia, but the Canada's area denial kind of worked too well because suddenly he had 3 very powerful units all stacked one on top of the other.
Stabby units.
All 3 stabby. So I realized I had to consolidate and inflict some casualties very quickly on that left wing, or he was going to win before I even fired a shot.
Yeah, it was a good game. And then I got some practice on how to mediate or demo the game because it's weird. Every time I've come and played, and you notice that too as we're there, people kept coming up and asking questions.
Yeah.
Because if you look at you throw out that beautiful cigar box mat with the ships, which we didn't even use, and the models, people always go, what's that? And it has that eye candy, I think, that attracts people. So with that said, would you guys play this again? Collect this? Pass? I mean, what's your thoughts? And just because you say I'd play it again, you're not committing yourself to any cash.
I would definitely play it again. The fact that you can play the mixed force like we kind of saw in the first game, I felt like the French had a decent balance. But then when we broke it out and really went for the militia heavy shooting on Phil's side, or when I tried to build a force that was designed to just stab people, it gave a good flavor to the 2 matches that lets you get a different experience.
And you guys saw how many factions are in this damn game.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I do Scottish Militia because they get a +2 and, like, when they go in then for the stab. I just think they're that good. But there's so many good forces in this game. I think the problem I have is I want to play everything. And it's more like whittling down what I wouldn't want to play. And I know both you guys, you asked about the Dutch, right?
Yes.
Dutch are good. I haven't played them yet. Nobody has their stuff painted up. But we had one guy that came that played with Mike Tunez at either Historicon or Fallen. And then you guys. So it was like 3 people that really didn't have any experience. And it's kind of like, you guys are going to think about this one, I think, and say, yeah, I really want to play it again. And like I said, the ships play totally different. I kind of like it. Now, does the period appeal to you? Because at first it didn't appeal to me, but I heard it was a tight game.
So I know initially the period would not appeal to me, but when you give it the pirate flavor and actually having played through it, it dramatically increased the appeal. Just seeing how choosing pistols or brace of pistols means your ability to defend yourself and continue to like shoot down the adversary made a huge difference. And it felt like a bunch of pirates fighting on the board.
Well, I know for me, I am interested in that area, but or that time period, but it is geographically dependent. You know, if you're talking about the 30 Years' War or most of the traditional pike and shot settings, I don't really care that much. But you start talking about the New World, you start talking about the Caribbean, now I'm intrigued. You know, this just conjures up all these mental images I have of, you know, conquistadors and settlers shooting at Indians and all sorts of stuff like that, that it paints this very vivid picture that if it was set elsewhere in the world at the same time, might not.
Yeah, it's interesting history. And I think, like, this is really not my period. I mean, I think as far back as I go is Napoleonics. But I think the pirate flavor, and then from reading some of Berenson's Little's and Benderson Little's books, which I always recommend, it gets you into that flavor. And he wrote a game where I'm like, oh, man, this is... And I knew he had a connection to Firelock guys, but last time we spoke to Mike, he said that, yeah, you know, he's like the historical guru for the game. And his books, they're just that good. It plays well. It's fun. It's bloody.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a real skirmish game. It's, you know, every time I play it, I like it. I want to play it more. But that's me, you know, because I'm an addicted junkie gamer, you know. But it's, you know, from trying it out. So, like, for the folks out there talking to these guys, once again, you know, how many miniatures in your life you ever painted, Nate?
I tried once, and that was it.
Yep. So, for not being mini gamers, but you guys understand gaming, and we'll get into that in the third segment, and sitting down at the table, it was easy to pick up. It's just really kind of, because these things sell out so damn fast, and it's just finding some of this stuff. And the models are beautiful. People are going to say, like in the last one, I'm a shill for this game, but it's a good game. I mean, it really is. It's just the amount of people that came over and said, hey, tell me about that game. So do you guys want to talk about a game you played last week? Because I know Phil's sitting there just staring at me like, I want to talk about something fun. Or, do you want to talk about DEFCON Zero?
Yeah, I could talk about DEFCON Zero.
Because DEFCON Zero is not out yet. It's not out, but you guys got to play test it last week. And Glenn Goddard and I play tested a few weeks before. And I have troops for DEFCON Zero. But how can I describe DEFCON Zero? It is a platoon level to maybe company level modern game that uses, if you do not know real world tactics, you're not going to play that game well. And then you guys played it for a couple of hours last week. What do you guys think?
Absolutely engrossed. I mean, from the second we kind of looked at the board and saw it was a modern setup with tight playing rules, I was really eager to jump in. And once I actually got my hands on some Russians, got them on the board and got shooting, very, very engrossed.
Very good, very well painted Russians, according to some of the folks here.
Yeah.
They're okay. Yeah, I tell people I'm a hack painter. I really am. Because look at a guy like Anthony Keelan out there who's an amazing painter. So DEFCON Zero is not out yet. It's being done by the, I think, guys at Covert Intervention. And right now they're playtesting it here at Games Tavern in Chantilly, Virginia. And I think they're looking for a summer release. Tell us about the game you guys played. Because Phil did the write-up for it, which is we're going to post on the website. And it was like reading a novel of Third World War type fighting. So tell us about your forces and tell us about your game.
So we started off with the choice of American or Russians. I lean towards Russians, Phil obliged. And we had a little bit of support from Rob as well, who took our third squad. So that was our platoon. And then we chose a mission, which I thought was a great addition to the system.
And let's go over that mechanic. Each side picks a mission card, and it's hidden from the other player. And other games do have that, where it's hidden. Malifaux is a game like that too. But what was the mission you guys picked? It was a good one.
So we picked Search and Attack. We looked at it, realized we had a numeric advantage over the enemy, and thought that we could get pretty much everybody get in contact. That's the easiest way to get victory points with that mission.
And so you guys played the Russians, and Reed was playing U.S.?
He had 2 squads of Americans.
So in the squads here in this game, he bases it on actual Russian and U.S. TO&E. Besides the Russians and Americans, he has, what are the other 2?
You also got the New Caliphate, which are the ISIS successors, and then they have a special forces group called Aslan.
For those that don't know about Aslan, those are the guys that Belsen, right? Wasn't that one of their terrorist attacks, or the Chechens?
Yeah, and the Chechens and all the mythical super snipers waiting out there in the wastes of Iraq.
Yeah, it's weird. You talk about super snipers. I just watched, I don't know why I did it, but it was Enemy at the Gates again.
Oh, yeah.
What a stupid movie. But it had a great cast. I can watch Rachel Weisz do anything. So, and it was a desert village. And tell us how the game went.
Well, the charge of the Light Brigade did not go well at the start, but lucky RPG shot kind of kept it together. Phil's unit started out on the far left. I was immediately to his right. And then on the far end of the field, we had Rob set up a base of fire.
It's Rob Snyder.
Rob Snyder. And he did a great job. Aside from some of his guys had athletic issues. They weren't capable of climbing on the building with the rest of the team. But Reed started out on the other side of the field, only put 1 squad out initially. So we moved to isolate them quickly and then ended up getting surprised with his mission choice, which was a raid. And they dropped in on our flank. They were unprotected, but so were we largely. And that led to a pretty open gunfight.
Definitely want to interject. Nate has not adequately conveyed the uncertainty and paranoia when you know the enemy has an entire second squad, but you don't know where, and they're not obliged to reveal it to you.
Now, as we're talking modern squad tactics, we love, we have one of the best diverse military-oriented staffs. Even Sylvia that does PRs in the Army. You have a little bit of Army experience, don't you?
That's true. I was in the Army for 5 years, and I was nominally an armor officer, but the years I was in, I only ever saw my tanks check them in services.
And you had 4 years before that where you had a very big military experience as well.
Okay, so I'm not getting around talking about this. I graduated from West Point, so I spent 4 years as a cadet there, and that was an experience.
So he joins the long line of Army tankers on the NDNG staff. So Nate's also military, but it's Air Force, and when it comes to a game like this, you and I don't have the training. But yeah, it was interesting how that worked because I was wondering where Reed was going to insert that second squad. So going over some of the things about the game is that depending on the proficiency of your units is the base die they roll, where good, well-trained units roll everything on the D8. And let's say you were going to play one of the Caliphates or Aslan, it would be a D6. They're not as well trained. Weapons ranges. This is what people bitch about in every game. Weapons ranges really, as long as you have line of sight on a 6x4 table, anything can shoot anything. At a penalty, of course, at long range. And then the other thing that's interesting about the game that a lot of games don't have is opportunity fire.
Oh, yes.
Which so many games miss. And because it's a clunky tactic. Because I think when a gamer wants to move his stuff, that he doesn't want to be interrupted. I want to do my move. And this game is not like that. How did that tactic work as you guys were playing the game?
Well, so slight divergence. I will say I think a lot of people like I go, you go, not necessarily because of any particular attachment to the mechanic. It's just what they're used to. The first game you ever play, statistically speaking, is probably an I go, you go game. The game that you've dumped the most money into, spend the most time. Yeah, exactly. It's one of us is going to go, then the other person's going to go. But I think the only real attachment to that mechanic is just because it's the industry standard. It's what's common. So when we played with this as a different tactic or as a different mechanic in the game, we learned very quickly we had to take advantage of it because if we didn't, we would die. But the first thing that happened when Nate refers to Charge of Light Brigade, you can see the photo. I had clumped up my squad, not because I wanted them to be clumped up, but I had made this weird mistake of thinking the deployment zone will be safe. Yeah, I don't know why I thought that.
Is that what they teach at West Point?
I guess so.
Yeah.
What I had hoped to do was get them from the presumably safe deployment zone rushed up against a wall, at which point they were going to be more dispersed.
So, in other words, you thought that he wasn't going to be allowed to spawn camp.
Yep. I took the wrong lessons from video games. But I pushed up forward, and before I pushed up forward, his first two guys got in a line, and they started shooting at me. But that was when Reed looked at me and said, now you have a chance for interruption fire. And I go, what's interruption fire? And he goes, well, those capability die, we're going to roll them off against each other. We both rolled a D8. I got a 7. He got a 3. So even though I hadn't positioned my units very well, they were still well-trained. They were still prepared to react to fire, so they got to shoot first. Unfortunately for Reed, one of those guys had an RPG-7. So I popped the RPG-7, hit the two guys on top of the building, and this is where this also gets interesting. This game doesn't immediately tell you whether or not you kill them. It marks them as casualties. They go down. You put a D12 next to them showing how many turns you have to potentially render aid. They are out of the fight, but they're not removed from the board.
Mm-hmm.
But that interrupt saved my miniatures.
Yeah, I was Glenn and I were watching that, and that's the interesting thing about this game. It's like, well-trained units, and especially squads. The other one here to realize it's like a true skirmish game. If the guy has an RPG-7, that's what he shoots. He has an RPK, that's what he shoots. What was the other big...
We had one sniper in Rob's squad.
One sniper.
Our base of fire there.
Right. You got the raid squad leader.
Yeah.
And you can also upgrade to RPG-22s. Snipers is an upgrade. You can also bring in machine gun squads, which have the... What's that machine gun called?
PKMs, M240s, whatever the sides use.
Whichever side. And they have a hell of a rate of fire. A lot of dice. So it's a lot of dice rolling. But as you guys were playing the game, did it seem intuitive?
It felt very intuitive. Being the first time I'd picked up a miniatures game in ever, it went really smoothly. I think it helped having Reed there, again, just kind of walking us through it. But by the second round of play, we were moving along pretty well at our own pace. And Reed was allowed to focus on trying to take us out, and we were...
I believe you guys won the game too, right?
Oh, we did.
Against the guy that designed it.
It was a pretty crushing victory.
Yeah. And that's it, too. A lot of it is like when that squad showed up on the side, you have that oh shit moment. But you guys, seems like you handled it rather well.
Well, the raid insertion, I think, was decided as a 50-50 gunfight moment. And unfortunately for Reed, he put in one squad of Americans against 2 squads of Russian PMCs. And while the Americans had a little more quality and better armor, the numbers just became telling in the end.
Well, he also had the misfortune of he showed up right when our support by fire element that Rob had got in place. So he wasn't just up against 2 squads. He was up against 3.
And I don't know if the pictures will show this, and we'll put a link to the article on this, but his were on a roof on the other side of the table. And that's because the weapon ranges in this are real. If something shoots 300 meters in the game, what does it shoot in here? It's what? Like 300 centimeters, right?
Yep.
So it's reaching out and touching you on these boards. It's very quick. It's bloody. And I know you guys really want to play it again. Like, hopefully this game will come out. Since you've played it, have you, like, gone over it in your head to say, I would have done this differently? Did you learn anything from it is really what I'm getting at.
Video games are full of lies.
Yeah.
And definitely remember, if somebody markets a realistic game from you, that means realistic from the get-go, not realistic when you feel like it.
Right. So, I mean, let's say, and a lot of gamers out there, and we could talk about the industry a little bit too, everybody fashions themselves as a, expert in tactics. In this one, when I could tell you when I played against Glenn, not knowing some of the tactics and Glenn, he's been in the Army for 30-something years. He mowed me down, realizing that, wait, this is not a game where just thinking this is a good move is a good move.
Well, and I think that goes to where the mission cards are great, because if you choose intelligently based off of what you see out in front of you or what the forces are arrayed against each other, you can give yourself a pretty good advantage at the start.
Yeah. Yeah. The big thing, too, and I'll ask about Blood and Plunder in this, is did you guys have fun playing the game?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you get to roll dice, I know it's fun, as opposed to doing anything else.
Well, I mean, you get to do Russian voices as well, so when Nikolai lit off with the RPG and, got to high-five Ivan afterwards, everybody was happy.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a 20-millimeter game. It's not out, but we will put where you can start buying units. And I know you were so impressed by it, you were thinking of getting an army.
And teaching myself to paint.
Yeah.
Getting lessons from Keelan because he's very generous.
And that's the other thing, too. I am the worst painter on our staff. Until now with you.
Second worst now.
Now, I will no longer be the worst. But, I mean, it's because some of these guys are just amazing painters and amazing gamers. I'm excited for this game. I hope it comes out this summer. And I hope you guys get in on the play test. With my time and this and that, but I think you guys has played, staying engaged in the game and telling us more about it. I think it's going to be an exciting game. It is one of those games where, if you're a novice gamer, I think you will find out very quickly how good of a tactician you are in this game.
Oh,
as opposed to Blood and Plunder, where you still need good tactics, but the mechanics are a little bit more forgiving for bad moves.
Yeah, I would say that Blood and Plunder plays a little bit more like a pirate game because mistakes are made. You probably had a little bit of rum before taking the field of battle, whereas in DEFCON Zero, you're playing trained operators, or at least a caliphate committed to killing some people. So it comes across a little differently. Both had a good amount of tension, though, and it was just exciting to play.
Yeah.
You also feel the difference in technology, and this actually came up while we were playing the game. It's one thing if you're in the 1600s, maybe early 1700s, and people have muskets that may take a matter of 10, 20, 30 seconds to reload, and especially a firelock is going to take you forever to get ready to fire again. By contrast, in the modern scenario, you're looking at every soldier has a weapon with 30 shots, and then they're also carrying another 180 rounds spread out over 6 more magazines. Plus, in actual modern combat, they got more at the truck, they got more nearby. Somebody's got just a bag full of mags. They're coating around too, probably. It's just everybody can keep shooting, and that difference in sort of shoot pause versus shoot, I think that goes a long way to explain the lethality difference.
Yeah, and the other one too, DEFCON Zero does have. You guys had extra ammo.
Yeah, the logistics rating.
which is very few games have.
That was a nice touch. I should explain. That's where the idea of a assault pack full of magazines came from. Is that's basically what it was described. Well, you got 2 guys in each squad just carrying around more mags, so shoot.
Right, and in this, if you have an abundance of ammo, you get extra die to shoot, which I know for some turns you guys forgot, and it kind of makes a difference because if you know that you have ammo and you have good logistics, you're going to shoot more. You don't have to, take well-aimed shots because you're out of ammo.
Yeah, it's true. I think the 2 mechanics that we actually forgot the most were our side forgot the extra logistics, but Reed forgot Overwatch. And the Overwatch mechanics in the game they're also worth talking about. So it's similar to an interrupt, but the difference is if you set a unit in Overwatch, you forfeit their normal actions. They can't run, they can't take a deliberate target at something, but anytime an enemy unit within their sightline does anything, you can shoot. And
range is, I would say, unlimited, but it's realistic.
Yeah, it's functionally infinite on the tables.
So, like with Phil on the other side of the table, let's say he would have had a machine gun squad. Like, he would have made life difficult because he would have kept putting those guys in Overwatch. He would have made everything difficult in that game for an attacker.
Yeah, I think what we saw there is our base of fire squad didn't get on the table quickly or on the building rooftop that we planned to have them use for Overwatch quickly enough. So they were able to support with fire, but getting into that really good position to take advantage of Overwatch never happened. And the only troops I put into Overwatch were watching an alleyway I was expecting Reed to try and cross to move across the map. And he never got to it because he brought in that raid faction behind us, which kept my troops moving around in order to try and survive and prevented them from leveraging the mechanic.
Yeah, I would say it is. I think you have different levels of games. I think you have beer and pretzels games, which I think are fun and serve a purpose because you get them finished in an hour and plus. And then you would have the intermediate games, and I'm going to throw Flames of War in there. I'll throw Bolt Action, where the rules are a little bit more nuanced, where the differences between weapons of each of it starts making a difference. But in order to ease the mechanics of the game, which takes about 2.5 hours, they're not burdensome enough, or they're not too burdensome. Where you get into this next level, here's a game that you guys could play in 2.5 hours, but real operators could do mission rehearsal or training with this and think about tactics based on a very fluid situation. But it's still fun to play, and that is hard to do. So I don't know about you. I'm so excited for this game. And I know we're teasing people because there's no place you can read about it.
Unless you're in the Chantilly area, I guess.
Unless you're in the Chantilly area. But you can always hit up our forums, and we'll start a whole new forum segment for this game if you guys have questions. I don't know what we can and cannot talk about, but I think the game from the time I played it kept me thinking, and really are like, geez, I have to see at my age if I can go to West Point. I don't think I can, right? What's the age limit? It's 24, right?
Yeah, even then that's tough. It's 20. You have to be. You're supposed to be no older than 26 when you graduate.
Yeah,
but even that they require waivers.
And I got dependents, so unless I sell my son.
I mean, you waited 2 years too long, Mitch.
Yeah, damn, yeah. It's kind of about that. So as we're sitting and we're talking about like general wargaming, and we're kind of going through this fast, let's discuss and we just got Nate today as a writer, and we got Phil last week. And it's not because I was excluding you. It's just you didn't jump at the chance. You're like, hey, me too. But let's talk about some of the games you've worked on in the past and what you've played. There was one that it was weird when you mentioned it to me. I thought nobody in the world would ever know about Fallen Lands.
Yeah, so Fallen Land, which is done by Fallen Dominion Studios out of Iowa, Iowa City, Iowa, in fact.
Iowa City.
I helped work on that just a little bit. I got in right around the time they were running a Kickstarter. I lived in Illinois at the time, and I'd written John Longren, the guy that runs the whole thing, and asked him, hey, is there any way I could get in a play test before this? I noticed you guys are within driving distance of me. He said sure. I drove out there. We hit it off, and I've been working with them a little bit on and off since then. Now, most of what I did was just play testing, like very, very last-minute development and whatnot, writing a few suggestions on maybe fix this, maybe fix that. But going forward, we're hoping to do more on that.
Yeah, it's a fun land. It's a post-apocalyptic game, and I don't know if you could still find the Gen Con episode from WWPD, but we spoke to John, and he was in Gen Con mode.
Yeah.
So he just kept saying, Fallen Lands, post-apocalyptic. What's the actual full name of it?
Fallen Land, a post-apocalyptic board game for 2 to 5 players.
Yeah, and he kept saying that, and it was like, I'd love to talk to him again when he's like maybe on, Downers or something, because he talks fast. And I have the game. I bought it, and that's how good it is. It's a testament to buying games. But there's another game that I've been pushing on Kickstarter for the last few days that you also have some touch points with, and that is from Lock and Load Publishing. What's it? World at War 80. What's the actual name of that game?
So it's World at War 85 is the overall series. The individual title that's up on Kickstarter right now is Storming the Gap, which, as you probably guessed from the title, yes, it is the Fold the Gap.
Oh, I thought it was something sexual. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm still going to keep my Kickstarter.
Yeah, we'll make it whatever you want, Mitch. I promise.
I appreciate that. So, I posted on some of the Team Yankee games, and you worked on that rule set. And what is neat is if you're iffy about, so it's a World War III game, essentially with platoons of tanks, transports, soldiers, quick, bloody, the mechanics different than some of the other games. Can you go into any of the mechanic that's a little different than some of the other games?
Yeah, I can talk about this. So this is an update of the older World at War series, which was done when Mark Walker headed up L&L.
A big friend of the show.
Yeah, and it was terrific work on that series. But as we got there, kind of got realized that the games hadn't put anything out new in a while. So the decision was made to try to relook at that. So the system is still similar to the original World War 85. One of the things that game had, or the game system had, that's good is a chit draw for turn order. So it's not always a fixed turn order. You draw a different unit, and everything that's tagged with that unit's band can go at one time, but you can't just move all your forces at once. And because it's variable chit draw, it may mean that one person goes 3 times before you go, or it may mean you go 3 times before they go. And that can really, really adjust the situation on the battlefield.
So, with the units, I noticed this was kind of interesting, that every unit has a number of dice and a firepower number. So if I am shooting at something that's within my range, and it's either HE or AT, high explosive against soft targets, AP against armor-type targets, that I have to roll range 11, okay, so he's within range 8, and I can roll 3 dice, but I need to get a 5 or up for an Abrams, which I guess is for the 105mm gun, because I know some of the Russian tanks have 4s for firepower.
Yes, this is 1985, so you're looking at entirely M1s and M1 IPs for your Abrams, and that is why they have a lower number. But otherwise, you're absolutely correct. The idea is, as you have a platoon worth of tanks shooting, they're all going to take multiple shots using multiple different types of rounds, and depending on what they're optimized for, that's going to up or lower your chances.
You still get a save, I noticed, with that as well. You have a armor number or defensive factor, and then you get save rolls too.
You do still get a save roll. Your tanks aren't just going to take rounds and spontaneously combust. I mean, they might if it's the cheap stuff they gave the East Germans, but that's their problem.
It's not Shermans either.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I thought that was that was kind of neat. I love, and I hate to say this, if a map looks beautiful and the counters look cool, I am more inclined to purchase that game, even if the mechanics are so-so. In this one, I think the mechanics are really sound, and I mean, I have some of their older games. One's at work, actually. I showed Phil last week. It's right on my desk at Andrews.
Dawn's Early Light.
Dawn's Early Light, which is, I think that's a step up. That is the Core Command game.
That is. You're starting to maneuver battalions around.
Yeah, and the maps are bigger. But this one, it's like a real modern game. And I've tried others, like MBT by GMT, I think. Mm-hmm. And some of the other games, and I really couldn't get into them. This one, I know from their past hits, and I guess I can say hits, that it's going to be a pretty good game. So I'm going to put on the link here for the Kickstarter because, I want to get a lot of NDNG listeners to buy the game. And the other one, too, is it's already within like 5 days hit most of its unlocks.
Yeah, it's been really incredible. So the folks that are actively working on the game, I'm really an associate developer. I did a little bit of work.
Your name is on the rule book.
It should be.
It is.
The big guy running it, though, is Keith Tracton. Keith Tracton has done everything to this game to make it work. I got to give a shout-out to him. He is a terrific guy to work with, really has a good idea on sort of how the games work, what makes it smooth. And he took a lot of looks at the original version and made a conscious decision. We're not just going to reskin it. We're going to make sure that we improve everything we can, make this the best possible game we can.
And this is the first of 7 games.
8.
So the next one is British. So it's North German playing.
Yep.
And they're definitely doing 2 of them, I believe.
Yeah, so the plans, when I last talked to Keith about this, what he planned for is the next one will be Blood and Bridges, which is the Blood and Fury, which is the Blood and Bridges update. So you're going to have your Brits, you're going to have your Danes. I believe there's a plan to put some Polish in.
Yeah, Polish, according to the website.
And
lockandloadpublishing.com.
Yep, they still got information for all 8 others. The one that I can tell you I'm personally looking forward to the most is Strike Force Africa.
Yeah, so that looks like, because I saw they have some of those South African, only South Africans, because they had an arms embargo in the 80s.
Yep.
And is that going to... So you do have NATO forces. You do have Cubans, I believe, in that one.
Correct.
So it's proxy wars, Zaire, Angola, Mozambique.
So the way they're looking to play it as of right now is, we want to embroil as many theaters as possible. So the argument is the Russians lay in this gigantic supply line that runs from Angola all the way up to their allies in Ethiopia. And they use that to try to get out rare earth minerals like molybdenum was the big one.
Yeah, I'd have to take your word for it.
I would too. Keith knows more about this than I do. But that gives them an impetus to kind of start a brush fire down there, get stuff going, take some heat off of what's going on in Europe. And also what the hope is always you overextend the U.S. You get them, if a division that has to go to Africa is a division that doesn't show up in Europe.
Are they going to combine that into a massive campaign type game? Because I noticed they've already unlocked the campaign game with Storming the Gap.
I got to ask Keith. I believe that is the ultimate intention, but I know his first focus is making sure all the mission modules and individual scenarios worked. And by the way, with this, you're not getting onesie-twosie scenarios or 10 scenarios. You're looking at 20 to 30 scenarios per game, and that's not including any of the add-ons that come on.
Yeah, so like the add-ons for the one that you can still jump on the Kickstarter, and we'll put the link down below, to me is like, there's no way they're going to make money on this game with all those, because they've already added the Frankfurt battle. They're already adding, 12 new maps or 6 new maps? They already added the winter maps, which Warsaw Pact would not attack in the winter.
Not if they wanted to win.
Yeah, it's too cold. He threw in a lot of stuff. So I think the initial Kickstarter is like $70, but he tells you how much each unlock is worth. Maybe that's one thing that they did wrong is they made those unlocks too easy to attain.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm pretty removed from that part. I could talk about the mechanics, and I can also tell you that the timeline written in the books is I may be biased, but a pretty good alternate Cold War timeline. So,
and there's a book that was unlocked. Like some guy's writing a book on it.
Yeah, I believe. So David Heath, he's the guy that runs L&L right now. He knows a couple authors, and I'm not sure about the specifics. I haven't talked about this, but it was announced. Hey, there's going to be a tie-in book. So you can get you can read sort of the novelization of a World War III that might have happened.
Yeah, because there's like not enough books on that, right? No offense, man. I mean, it's so let me see. It has already gone up to 44K as far as unlocks. So I'm going to go look at this as we're here live, and let me see what's unlocked. First of all, I mean, if you read what all the info they put on Kickstarter, you're kind of going to fall in love with this game. But I want to see everything unlocked, folks. And I think the only way we can do this is, so the winter map's unlocked, the gamer mat unlocked, the campaign system unlocked, the book unlocked, the fold-up monster map, which is 8 maps, unlocked. The Defense of Frankfurt expansion module, unlocked. Hold the Damn Line monster scenario, unlocked. The core game expanded with more maps and a city map unlocked, and the Folda Winter maps, and Storm and Steel Second Wave expansion module. What is that? Oh, it adds the Czechs and West German troops. It looks like they're going to be coming through southern Bavaria there. That's at $55K. So, folks, this is going to come out probably, guys, well, you guys, when guys listen to this, it's already out, obviously. But it'll probably be out a week from this Tuesday. If it's not at $55K, go in and order the game. Because already for let me see what my initial investment is here. $70. I am getting all that free stuff I just told you with each of the unlocks. And it's a great game. I do not think they've never really put out a truly bad game.
No, L&L is reliably good. Whether you're talking about the older stuff during the Walker days or the newer stuff during the Heath days, it's reliably good work. They hire good folks. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but
you are. And you've also played a game that Glenn and I that we talked about. I think in a few podcasts we did an article on is 65, the Vietnam game.
Oh yeah, 65 is great.
65 is and Nate is still here. He's still in the room. We didn't kick him out.
I mean, I'm enjoying myself watching the excitement that Phil has for these things.
So 65 is a card-driven, there's no dice, game where it has Viet Cong, North Vietnamese, and basically in the initial set it's just Americans, but you can add the Australians because they were big players in the war, Battlefront, and the Marines.
Yep.
With these big maps. And it's a lot of fun. One thing I would wish is they had more infantry scenarios, because I think armor it changes it a little bit because it uses a different mechanic.
I love tanks. I love seeing tanks and stuff. Tanks were not the big part of Vietnam, man. You got to run infantry centric. That's where the meat is in that conflict.
Yeah, it is such a great game. And then he's coming out with Afghanistan 85, which I know I'm going to be excited. Nate.
Oh yeah. Afghanistan with the Russians, absolutely excited for that. Which reminds me, we have to play 65 at some point in time, because when you mentioned it at first, we were walking away afterwards talking about it, and that Vietnam 65, Afghanistan 85, two of my absolute favorite periods to look at for history for some of what's going on there.
Yeah, he did such a good job. It is, and you can listen to it was one of our earlier podcasts, the interview of Mark Walker. I wish the sound quality could be better. But, he is such an interesting dude to talk to. And, Flying Pig, so there's two companies that he kind of works with, and he explains that there's Flying Pig is your high-level, beautifully designed, hard map games that are the Silver Bullet games.
Yeah.
And then the other company is, I forgot the name.
Thinking of Tiny Battle Publishing.
TBS. And he puts out some great games there. Because a guy that we interviewed when we were WWPD, John, I forgot your last name, but he does Great War games, and I love the Great War. And he also developed an innovative mechanic for the game. And Gorskowski, that's his name, John Gorskowski. We have to have him back because his third game is coming out.
He's doing he did South China Sea, and the sequel to that's coming out soon, which is Indo-Pacific.
Oh, so what game system is that?
So South China Sea is its own system. That's where I first learned there was such a person as John Gorkowski, who definitely invited me along for that one.
Do you know he lives around here?
Oh, I do. He's a State Department guy, right?
Yes, he is, and he's a diehard ASL player.
Interesting.
Yes, and we are No Dice No Glory is supporting the Human Wave ASL tournament in June. Dave Garvin, another guy we picked up as a writer, will start writing about it. But he's having a tournament just for ASL starter kit guys. And I only have starter kit. I have the rules for it. Have you ever played ASL?
I have not.
Have you seen it?
I have not. No, this one.
You've played it.
I've played it.
It's not the most beautiful looking game, but it's only been around since 1977. And they had 180 people show up at Winter Offensive in Bowie, Maryland, still playing the game. Now, Sean and I went, we interviewed the guys from Multiman Publishing, and, it'd be good to see some younger guys get into that game, because I think Sean was the youngest guy in the room almost, and these are really good games. that folks really need to start playing, I think, a little bit more. Which brings us to another question. I've always said that miniature gamers are one breed, and board gamers, they're like distant cousins. They both have a love of history, but they're not interchangeable. And I think you guys now are starting to get miniature stink on you more so than before. Do you find like it scratches different itches?
I think so it always, everything is system dependent. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's true. You know, there's prohibitive costs that are different. The appeal to board games for me, and if it's not obvious, that's my background. The appeal there was always everything you need comes in one box. You pay once, you get it out. But the catch is everything you have comes in that one box. So the odds that somebody else is familiar with it, only if they've seen that one box before.
Right.
I think that's a trade-off because with miniatures games, somebody might have a different army than you. You know, they might have, Tau or Germans or whatever versus your Space Marines or Russians. But you guys still speak the same language. You understand how things work. Your stats make sense to each other. So it's kind of a trade-off. Honestly, though, I think they scratch the same itch. You know, this is fundamentally representative combat, and what's important about it is what do you need to get in the mental headspace to think representative combat. You need 3D minis? Use 3D minis. You need chips and NATO symbols? Use chips and NATO symbols. That's the big thing to me, is making that jump and getting people to be able to visualize the battle.
In our podcast, when this one comes out, it'll be 2 podcasts ago when I sat down with Sean. I've tried for years to get that guy into hex encounter board war games, even trying like the block games, which some of them are amazing. And it's just, he's also a hobbyist. He's a modeler. So it wasn't for him. The other one, too, is like a lot of rules for board games could be quite expansive.
Oh, yeah.
What's that game I have on my desk, Next War Poland?
Yeah, Next War Poland, the Next War series by GMT. If you guys ever want to try to exist like a core level planner, play the game. And I mean that with both good and bad. If you're willing to put through it, if you're willing to put in the time, very rewarding.
Because he has cyber in there?
Oh, yeah.
He's got EW. He's got stealth.
Asymmetric war, partisans, everything you can name.
Yeah, and my thing is, as much as I'd love to play it, I don't know because you can't. If we were to play it, we'd have to find a place to set it up for a month. Yeah,
I mean, that's the problem, is if you play with the standard rules, you can play that quick, but the whole appeal of the game is in the advanced rules. That's really where the meat is there.
Yeah.
And Mitch, you're absolutely right. You're looking at a long-term time commitment just to learn the rules, let alone to play, and then you may not ever touch that same game again. So is it worth it? I mean, I think it depends on the person. If you really want to know what that's going to be like and want to know everything that goes in, absolutely, spend the money. But if you're really just looking for 3 hours of simulated combat, I think you're probably better off going somewhere else.
So let me talk about the games that you have in your collection. Mostly board games, replayability. What game have you played that you haven't play tested, because it wouldn't be fair, have you played over 10 times?
For games that I haven't play tested? Twilight Struggle. Play a lot of Twilight Struggle.
But you play tested that?
No. I wasn't a play tester for Twilight Struggle.
Twilight Struggle.
Yeah.
Oh, which is one of the best war games ever made. And it's a game without war sometimes.
Yeah, that's true. And then also, as far as war games go, I think that and Vento Nuovo's Moscow 41. But I've played Moscow 41 exactly 10 times.
I want to play that game one time. Because I saw he had it on Kickstarter. It's a guy obviously from Italy, and it's styling. It has an appeal. I downloaded because download the rules to a lot of these games, and that's the other difference between board games. Like go to places like Worthington Publishing, Compass Games, GMT, Dan Verson Games. I know I'm leaving out like Doc Cummings and
Victory,
and all those guys. But you could download a lot of these and see if the rules appeal to you. And then some of them are done where you could play it on a modest map with not a million counters, and you can play it in 2 hours. Like the Folio games from Decision Games.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I got a wad of those things in different periods.
And that's what I've played most of is just Folio games that are solitaire-driven. I haven't played anything more than 10 times. And that just gets to...
You're also a young man.
Well, having been living in the middle of nowhere for a while kind of drives away from that. There aren't a lot of people...
How long have you guys been living in the Northern Virginia area?
I've been here for about a year and a half now.
About 4 months.
So we are in the golden age of gaming, but you're also in the golden mecca of gaming, which is good and bad. And we talked about this with Sean. I wanted to learn X-Wing, so I went to Curio Cavern. Unfortunately, those are some of the best players in the country. And if you want to play a game for fun, to learn how to play it, that's fine. But if you go in expecting you're going to win a lot, those guys are that good. But here, like just mentioning Winter Offensive and Human Wave, I think that's what it is because it's by the Conscripts, which is a local. Like there's so many gaming clubs in this area and game designers and developers. Like within 100 miles of here, you have MMP. Mark Walker lives down in Southern Virginia.
Yeah, Mark Herman's in the area too.
Mark Herman, John Gorscott, we just met. This to me is like one of the best places to play. In a way, I suffered from that because I played Flames of War too much where I want to play other stuff. But here, like, it's so easy to find fellow gamers here. And you go to these stores like the one we're in. It's cool. Like in Minneapolis, Tom Gall, who's our guy in Minneapolis, he talks about like 2 stores in the area that he plays at, or at least one.
That's surprising. I moved from there, so I'm biased. There is a lot of stuff there as well, although I will say it's generally not as war game friendly. It's more generalized gaming. You want to play a board game, you can go in anywhere. You want to play more fantastic stuff, that was easy to find.
Magic. You want to say Magic. I know you want to say Magic.
I don't know, man. I mean, we don't have a fight here. There's a lot of good stuff up in Minneapolis in terms of nerdy and tabletop, but I would say it tends to be a lot more it's Euro games, it's dungeon crawl games, it's stuff like that. It's less war games, and I'm not bashing any of those. I play all this stuff. That's my problem. I can't focus. But you are right. In terms of specifically what kind of access do you have here to designers, to game clubs, to people that you could play with, very, very, very broad.
Yeah, because I've said recently, and this is the only hobby where having OCD and ADHD is common.
Yeah.
Because you learn a rule system, you become like a rules Nazi on it, but then like new hotness comes out, and it's like, what do you play? Like I've brought Blood Red Skies with me when we were play testing Heart of Leviathan, and you saw we set up the game, we never finished it. And it's one of those things like it's a beer and pretzel played in an hour game. Bolt action I want to play more of. It's trying to get the crowd. And I know if you're sitting there, and I know I forgot your name in Iowa, that we're trying to get a Flames of War group going for you with our Minneapolis guys. I know it sucks. Like, well, I'm glad that you guys are talking about the land of milk and honey when it comes to gamers. But, if you don't have the crew to play Blood and Plunder near you, start one.
Yeah.
Because if you go to a game store and just say, like, today I did, I guess I made a mistake and I told him Saturday for the demo, and he had 3 people show up yesterday.
Oh, man.
And one of them was what's his name? The guy that play tested with us, that played with you last week.
Rob
Snyder. So I feel bad, Rob. So if you listen to this, I will have emailed you by this time to apologize. But you can start game clubs, and there's something called the internet to both play Vassal and also to find gamers in your area to get yourself into games.
I think the other thing that people always underestimate, you would be amazed who's into games. You would be amazed sort of to who you could get to sit down and play with you. Most folks, if you can give them a little bit of time and think they have even remote interest in the area, you can get them to sit down and game with you.
Yeah, and I've done that at work. And then I think we could go into the third segment. So one of the interesting things about these two guys is they war game on Sundays, but Monday through Friday, what do you guys do?
We also war game.
Yeah, and I also war game for the Air Force, and a lot of people think like these are transferable skills, and they're not. So, Nate, how would you describe wargaming done in the places like the Pentagon where we work, as opposed to wargaming that most of these listeners have done?
Oh man, there's much more of a focus on actually pulling your lessons from it. If I go out there and I play DEFCON Zero and my Russians get shot up, I'm like, dang, that was unfortunate.
But you're not Russian.
Yeah, I've got no attachment to it. But when you're doing it for a living, you want to make sure that you get the right lessons. did the fact that Overwatch contributed to, actually shooting down the adversary, is that an important thing? Is that the lesson that we need to push forward? Should that go to troops in the field? Or, is the RPG-7 the magical mystery weapon that we need to solve everything in the future? We looked at what was really successful in DEFCON Zero talking earlier, but if I was playing that game for actual, work, I'd be looking a lot more like, okay, so the numbers that we have on here, where's the modeling and simulation behind them? What is the actual analysis supporting that? And then I would want to play it more than once with a couple different groups. You got to get various operators through to actually look at what it is so that there's not an individual bias, but that an entire community can utilize it. And then there's a matter of scale, because the games that Phil and I have run are a little bit different than the ones you've done.
Oh, much, yeah. And it's, people like, oh, wow, because if I hand the card to somebody, oh, you do wargaming, that must be cool. It's a lot of work. And the results I need is there's no winner or loser. It's can I take away lessons to make an informed programmatic decision on what we should be buying for the Air Force in our case here. So, it's different, but it's probably, as opposed to other jobs one can have in the Department of Defense, it's actually kind of a lot cooler.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because I came up and these guys were playing with a bunch of people. You guys are running them through a war game, and it's really a lot of that also is what their decision making comes out to. Here, you're playing against another dude, and if you make bad decisions, it's on you. You lose the game. There, it's do they know enough about doctrine and concept of operations and the operational art to actually go and make good decisions? And three of us were actually in a meeting Friday with wargamers from the Air Force Academy.
Yep. And
about their focus. And then, Phil brought up about the Wargaming Club, and they do play some role, but it's not as much fun as playing Blood and Plunder, because there's nowhere in the Pentagon we can introduce that to people and say you're going to learn something from it, because it's old history. So,
yeah, even if it's true, there's a bias against games in general, and that's not without merit. At the end of the day, I can't sit down and run Blood and Plunder or a session of Dungeons and Dragons or even a game of Twilight Struggle in my office and expect them to walk away and go, I get it now. Now I know how to make the Air Force. No, you really don't. You have to make a game towards what it is. And I think Mitch is right. The big difference is everybody here on the commercial side really is trying to make a game that's fun. You want it to be fun. You want people to talk about it. Our games may have some elements that are fun. We want to get the operators engaged, but that's really not the point. The point is an analytic objective.
But the trick is you can use some of the lessons that you see in the hobby wargaming. There's a value when I walk up to the table and I see that platoon of Russians sitting there and I see the platoon of Americans. It pulls me into the moment in a way that you don't get when we just sit down to talk about it.
Right.
So by putting out maps, putting out pieces, giving some depth to what's going on, the facilitation that you use to make sure the guy's playing a game for the first time, if it's Blood and Plunder or if it's a game that you've designed at work, you want to make sure that the experience is smooth and that it's immersive, because it's not just enough for people to sit down and play your game. You want them in the right headspace as well.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm going to say something interesting, and let's give a plug for Matt Caffrey, who runs Connections, that I will be facilitating a group, The Future of Wargaming. You know, Matt, and Matt, hopefully by the time you hear this, I'll be in your neighborhood, and I hope all's well with you. But he runs where industry, and I'm talking about the wargame industry, meets DoD wargamers, called Connections. This year it's in August in Carlisle Barracks.
Yep.
All three of us will be going.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get out of it because I volunteered. But the two communities, and I'm going to make a statement, and if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I think your average hobby gamer will learn very little from knowing about DoD wargaming. However, I think if you were to take the people we work with and take them to a gaming convention, a wargaming convention, I think they would learn quite a bit more. I think it is that one is that they'll see people playing these games with no military background that understand the concepts of both operational art of war. They understand how to employ weapons. Like, these are things that wargamers know perfectly without, being a defense analyst. And I would love to take them to an event just to immerse themselves. And we even mentioned it to the USAFA folks about going to a convention and seeing wargamers and how they do it for enjoyment, but then look at it as somebody that needs to use a war game at work and look at the methodologies and the ideologies that are behind the different types of games. I think they would get so much out of it. I would love to take a busload. And I remember one time at a fall-in, or it was one of the tournaments, that they had all these on a Thursday, which is the worst day to go to any con. They had all these West Point cadets walking around. It was just a few years ago. And I think they need to see this community and understand, the diversity and the interest some of these folks have. And I think some of the companies, and, just because you go buy a game from Academy Games, I'll bring Uwe up one more time. He goes to Connections.
Yes.
And he talks to the DOD. Because, if the DOD's interested in it and he could develop a mechanic, he has a game that, one, can help them out. But two, I think if you put on the side of a box played by real Army Rangers, I think wargamers would have a hard time resisting that because it's that much more immersive. So I think it's definitely, you won't learn much from coming with us to work. But I think bringing some of the folks that we work with to an event or even to this store in this big room over here, and I'm pointing, you guys can't see, to do even a Battle of Waterloo, which we could do, I think they would find fun and informative of getting into the whole thing.
Well, I mean, it gets into, there's a reason that people go on staff rides.
Right.
You walk through the situation, you talk through what happened, you can examine the history, and even if just watching people play through different historical scenarios or looking at things that never happened, like a, 85 World War III type scenario, there are lessons to be pulled. And watching people do things that aren't yourself is always very informative. As you said, a lot of wargamers are very informed about things, but there's also a value in watching a total novice go in because amateurs will do the things that the professionals don't think of. And a lot of the times it's just doing something wacky, but every once in a while they may have picked up something that otherwise we've been overlooking. So there's utility there that it would be nice to keep bringing that connection together. Well,
I think we need to work on bringing people we work with to one of the local gaming conventions or even hosting something, as a team building exercise to show them the vastness. Because I think people would be freaked out if you were to hand them a catalog from every major gaming company of all that is covered or a PEL from a convention. And some of the games are fun. One of my favorite is this guy, it's a cotton-clad game during the Civil War called Up the Wazoo. And he ran it. I think that's funny. And I think it's the same guy that does it's like a Rourke's Drift type game, and it's sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. Yeah. So, I don't know who you are, man, but I always look for you on the program events list because it's kind of fun. And, it's some aspects of warfare are tested throughout time, mass, maneuver. It's the reason why it's taught. War games have that. They cover that, and people can understand it.
Yeah, we saw even in Blood and Plunder, the ability to maneuver forces was critical in the second game, and it was part of utilizing terrain and reading what was going on the map.
Right.
It's a pirate game, but it used mass, maneuver, range. It used those basic tactical tenets, and seizing the opportunity made it work.
Situational awareness of what is going on so you can make the best informed decision at this time. And I know a lot of veteran gamers, like a Chris Jackson, is retired Army, and that's how he approaches his games. He's also very good at it. He understands combined arms. He understands the capabilities. And, when I look at a unit on a table, and I was trying to do that today, I said stabby and shooty. I'm really describing two different capabilities, the ability to shoot at distance or the ability to close in and beat you in close combat. And if you talk to a military war gamer, they will talk in capabilities. You know, the M1A2 does this. This is the capability of this vehicle, this platform. And I think there's crossover. And if you're out there and you're a novice gamer and you're interested, you will always have a good time going to a gaming store, a gaming convention to see what's played, even if it's like Space Marines and Warhammer, which I've never played. I think people can learn something from it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. And, I think one of the other things to sort of tie in with that is don't be daunted just because you can't recite a list of capabilities. People learn this over time.
Yeah.
And I know that's one of the problems I've had. My fiance will not sit down and play war games with me. She'll play other games.
Would she play Blood and Plunder?
I think she would. But the biggest reason she usually goes, she's like, well, you know all this, you're going to beat me, and I have to explain to her, actually, my win-loss record is like 33% win. I'm not that good at it.
Yeah.
Just because I can recite all the different variants of a Panzer IV doesn't mean I figured out how to do this.
And you know what's funny? I noticed a lot of guys who are retired military that play war games are not good at them because they have been ingrained with 20-plus years of doctrine and concept of operations that war games do not have. And a lot of it is learning the mechanics of a game and knowing your playing style, where wargaming style for the professionals, it is what it is. It's ingrained on years and years of training. Here, shooty or stabby.
Yep.
And I think that kind of says it all.
No, completely agree. Wargamers are great at sort of parsing out capabilities, figuring out what I need to stack, and building tactics based off of that. And then, again, you play enough of these games, eventually you get everybody's an encyclopedia that can tell you how to do everything.
Oh, my buddy Jorg, man, could tell me more about, a bunch of tanks, this and he understands it, and he's also a great gamer who doesn't do board games, but that's his fault. And they're two different things, but in the end, it is, if you have the appreciation for the history and the mechanics of a game and understanding how it, I'm not going to get into game theory here, but it's like understanding that you will not have a bad time. And maybe we should make people at work listen to this one.
Obviously, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, they'll be like, but you guys sound like a bunch of assholes.
Come on the show and prove us wrong.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, and it's, that would be a great show is to get some of these guys that we work with that have never played a fun war game to get them out there rolling dice and then understanding it's not that much different.
Well, it was a month ago before we started a recent series of games we've been going through. I was talking with one of the officers in the building I work with a lot, and he said, you're just rolling dice. It's all fairy dust and magic. Like, well,
no, it's not.
There's reasons behind the numbers, and if you can come up with a better way of doing it than rolling a dice against a realistically based probability.
What do you want me to do? Run a Monte Carlo simulation where I do it 10,000 times and I give you most likely?
We're happy to do that. Do you have a week to wait? How about 2 weeks? How about a month?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'll throw Rand here in the conversation. They roll dice based on hardcore probabilities to kill and modeling and simulation.
Yeah.
Guys, you have that in your games too. They're called CRTs. They're called 2-hit rolls. They're called save rolls. Those are not just arbitrary numbers that are thrown out there. That is based on actual capabilities, the skills of it's based on a ton of stuff, but that's the under the hood part of the games. And almost every computer war game has that.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where I go back to the first time I met Uwe and talking about Academy games and how they do things. I was surprised at, for just a commercial game, how much effort he went to and how much more than he knew about what the troops were doing, how they were responding, and what was going into that. And that was the conversation I ended up having at work is, hey, look, here's what goes into those dice rolls.
Yeah.
It looks like somebody's just rolling a dice, but there's so much more going on to it. And
right.
What you're getting is a way to move the game ahead so that the human decision and the human engagement, which I think is one of the biggest values of any war game, is what you're going to pull from it.
Right.
And so you can see how a dynamic opponent is going to engage you or what problems you're going to run into and think on your feet. Because if the model does it for you or the computer's running the sim for you.
Or the adjudication team does it for you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing people don't understand. Like, you do roll dice, but the adjudication team does that. Each side submits a move, and then adjudicators take anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to decide what actually happened. You can't do that. What, Phil?
Wait, you mean you guys don't just, go to lunch and then randomly tell people stuff? Is that not how we're supposed to do that?
We can.
I mean,
We can, but once again, where's the rigor behind it, and that's what people don't understand. When you buy a war game off the shelves, when you buy World at War '85 to make sure we unlock the next unlock, that they have put the analytic rigor into that game, and we were just talking about when I said, well, they need a score on a D6 to hit of a 5, and I said, is that because of the 105 millimeter gun? I didn't say that. There's a reason why I said that, and I can explain that mechanic where I get that. Is that going to make me better at playing the game? No. But, that's where that comes from.
But I think
they can't see you shake your head yes, by the way.
Well, yeah, you know, I'll just nod my agreement so no one knows I ever agree with you directly.
Oh, wow. Schools are 2 hours late tomorrow. Yeah. I know that you guys don't have kids.
Wintry mix.
Yeah, so maybe we should get out of here. But you're going to see a lot more and hopefully hear a lot more from these guys as we play games together, as we especially play DEFCON Zero more and play war games. And the other one, too, is like, look, Nate, we have to get his first article out there sometime. Phil has one in the pipeline. And, if you want points of contact these guys. Throw them, hey, how you doing on the forums, and ask questions. If this got any questions in your head that we didn't get to here, reach out. And it's we'll always be at a con. Everyone, I got to get you guys to come to a big miniatures convention.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, Cold Wars in March. You just maybe need to take a day off because I'm running my big Team Yankee thing.
Well,
and I could teach you Team Yankee between now and then.
I'm sold. It depends on when in March because I got to go do the NATO exercise.
March 15th?
That'll be good.
16th?
Yeah.
The NATO exercise is a euphemism for screwing off in the Netherlands for a month. That's what the Air Force gets paid to do. Don't ever forget it.
Look, the sacrifices that we make in order to
Where are you going to the Netherlands?
I'm going to support Frisian flag. I don't know
I have no
exactly
idea
where
what that
that
means.
is, but...
Is that like Denmark? Where's Frisia? I don't know.
Frisia is an old world term for the area that the Dutch claim as the Netherlands. So that's I want to say Frisia is inland as opposed to the coast. But
what's
don't
that? The
quote me on that.
Pan-Hasianic, that became Germany. Is that kind of like?
Yeah, it's in that area. I remember Frisian though because Frisian was one of the terms used by the sci-fi author. It'll come to me later. I'll tell you guys 3 podcasts from now.
And then Holland, Amsterdam, Netherlands. They have a lot of names for that country.
They can't make up their mind.
I believe it is the most named country I will have had the privilege to visit.
And they have the worst language voted by the Dutch themselves. Dutch is another one.
Have you seen how many J's there are in there? There's like a buy one get one free sale or something.
My favorite thing of anything with the Dutch is you got to watch the movie Euro Trip.
Oh
yeah.
Yeah. Did you say Hana Klana? Yes. Bring out and that's Lucy Lawless, who's a proud Kiwi. That's a good one. I just started watching a movie today. It's called April 9th about the Danish defense of Denmark, obviously, for the German invasion in 1940.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't speak Danish. It's subtitled. But it was kind of interesting. I don't know if I'll watch the rest of it just to see where it goes. I don't like reading subtitled things sometimes.
It can be tough to keep track of, especially when it's, here's like 2 lines at once, here's 15 words, one after the other. Oh, and by the way, they're going to keep talking, so hope you can read quickly.
Yeah, it's like watching a movie in Russian where the guy speaks because Russian's a very verbose language in its own content, but like what you need to take out of it may be like, and the guy's like, yes, I understand. I mean, it's crazy. Yeah. Well, we didn't buy an E rating today, and we may be censured once again by the country of the Netherlands.
Well, I will go and do my best to restore relations there.
Yeah.
Maybe get us access again for
Frisian flag. How far are you going to be from Amsterdam?
Well, on the weekends I'll be very close.
Don't eat the brownies. You're bad Rastafarian.
I'm gonna avoid most of the food in there. I think just to be safe.
And the red light district, you're going to go?
No.
Why not? You got to walk through it.
Well, during daylight, we'll go take a look around.
During daylight?
I'm more interested in, honestly, the history. This
is
the first trip to Europe for me. So
oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some history in Europe.
I think a couple of years or so have happened over there.
How far are you going to be from Arnhem and Nijmegen?
I gotta look it up still. I'm getting details.
I got to be honest. That country is like you can wake up in Brussels and you could be in Arnhem by lunch.
Yeah,
unless you're a British Armored Corps in 1944. Oh, that was sorry, Monty. Sorry. Is it too soon? Too soon?
Look, I'm not going to go into any market gardens. We'll see.
Oh, that's so punny. Well, hopefully you'll post some pictures from that too. But hey, I'd like to thank you guys for coming on. I'd like to welcome you to the team.
Thank you.
And a lot of guys wait a long time to get on the first podcast, and it's just because they don't volunteer. It's not because they're not interesting, because we have some interesting dudes. But, yeah, we're going to send it back to Sean in the studios. And thank you guys, and you'll hear more from them.
Yeah, it was great meeting everybody.
Yeah, happy to be on board.
All right, back to you, Shawnee boy.
Thanks so much for joining the show tonight. Remember to follow us on Twitter at No Dice, No Glory. And keep the conversation going on NoDiceNoGlory.com, now featuring our own message boards. Have a great night, everybody.